I just passed the AI 900 with 857 as my score, and I'm going to tell you it took me 2 weeks to study for it. Overall, I put maybe 12 hours in total of studying over the 2 weeks, so it wasn't my primary focus, and still I got it done in 2 weeks, so I think it was a pretty fun, easy exam. I'm studying the AI 102 now, but let me quickly break down everything that you need to know for the AI 900. So here's my notepad that I used to study for the AI 900. It says AI 102 because the AI 102 has pretty much the same overlap. The AI 102 brushes up against everything that you learned in the AI 900, but the AI 102 just goes deeper. So I included it there. As you can see, this is a public notepad. I'm going to have the link in the description below of all my notes so that you can use them for reference. The first principle is fairness. Fairness means AI systems should treat all people fairly. It shouldn't deny someone for a loan or something just because someone has a different ethnicity or different gender. So they make sure there's no biases based on what people look like or how they look. Think of like politically correctness. And this is pretty important because imagine you have a company and let's say you do insurance or something and you run an AI machine learning algorithm that kind of calculates insurance rates for certain people. And let's say one of your clients is African American and he gets a higher rate and it happened just because he was African American. Imagine the lawsuits and backlash you would get in the public media over something like that. Like it would destroy your company. So this fairness is very important for you as a business owner, and it's also important for you as a customer. So it's good for everyone. It's a win-win for both sides. The next one is reliability and safety. So this is ensuring that AI systems can handle errors or values it doesn't expect. So that means like for self-driving cars, needs to make sure that like if it comes across a scenario which it wasn't programmed to handle, it needs to be able to have a fallback option, like a default, that's not going to like kill the driver and everybody around him or do something really crazy dangerous. For AI systems that automatically diagnose and prescribes medication to patients, you got to make sure that it's prescribing things that are very simple or very straightforward or something where like you're not going to kill someone by accident if it accidentally gives the wrong medication, or even like default fallbacks where you can like pretty much guarantee that it's not going to prescribe the wrong medication. Like if it's unsure, it's just not going to give anything at all, and then you got to consult a doctor or something. So like things like that, it's reliable and safe. The next one is privacy and security. You got to make sure that if you're chatting with ChatGPT or some kind of virtual chat agent, that it's not going to disclose or leak your confidential personal data. And you got to make sure that if you're implementing your AI in your company's infrastructure, that it's private and secure and it's not going to increase your vulnerabilities against hackers. The next one is inclusiveness. So I had fairness and inclusiveness kind of mixed up and I couldn't really tell the difference between the two, but I had a way to figure it out. So fairness is, again, like making sure your AI systems aren't discriminating based on race or gender or religious beliefs or anything like that. But inclusiveness is making sure that you don't discriminate against people with disabilities. So you got to make sure that if someone is blind, they can still use your application or benefit from it. If you're born without fingers, or if you're paraplegic, or if you have diabetes, or making sure that no matter if you have mental illnesses or physical irregular problems or whatever the case is, kind of like making sure that the grocery stores, they always have the little button for wheelchair access, or instead of having stairs you would have like a ramp for wheelchair access or things like that, or in elevators you have braille for the elevator buttons. So that's inclusiveness in the real world. The next one is transparency. Transparency means you provide documentation with your source code that shows people exactly what is running on your software. So they can look at the code and see what's happening under the hood of the engine. You can also fully disclose how your product works and what its limitations are and how you tested it to come to that conclusion. So you say something like, if you're selling paint, let's say, you could say like, well, this paint worked and we tested it in the middle of summer and in the daytime it was about like 25 degrees and we applied 2 coats of the paint and it dried in like 5 hours. So you could say like that and it's like, okay, that works. So we've disclosed how it works, and we'll also say like, Maybe if you only apply one coat, it's probably not going to work that well. Or if you don't wait a certain amount of hours between each coat of paint, then it's not going to work that well. If you're painting it in a super hot room that's humid, maybe it's not going to have the same results. If you don't put a primer on the wall before you paint it, maybe you won't get the same color, stuff like that. And then next one's accountability. So this is all about legal and ethical standards. So anytime you're talking about like a legal team or like governance is putting in frameworks and taking action in a law, court of law or something like that, or making sure that you're setting things up with the mindset of like this needs to be ethical and not abuse anyone, that's accountability. So after that, the next one, once we got the responsible AI out of the way, we've got Azure AI Services. So we got machine learning. Under machine learning, we've got data sets. You got to learn about that. You need to learn the difference between Azure Auto Machine Learning and Azure Machine Learning Designer. And then there's three main ways of machine learning models. There's regression, classification, and clustering. Regression means you're trying to find value that you don't know. So let's say you own a car dealership for Toyota, and you're trying to figure out how many new Toyotas you need to bring out on your lot. Well, you would find your sales reports and your inventory reports and everything else from last year, and maybe from the last 5 years. You would compile all of that data, and you would create what's called a data set with that data, and you would put that data set into Azure Machine Learning Designer or Azure Auto Machine Learning. And then regression is an algorithm that uses whatever your model is in the machine learning, and it uses a bunch of math to try to determine and estimate how many sales you're going to make the next year based on all the information it's got on the previous years. The next one is classification. Classification is figuring out details about something. So a feature and a label. These are two things that I was kind of confused about at first. So a feature is, let's say, a carrot, and a label is whether or not the carrot is ripe or rotten. So in this scenario, credit score is a feature, and income is also a feature. But the label is whether or not it's low or high risk when determining if someone is good for a loan or not. You know, if you have an email would have a few features. The email title, the email body, and then the label would be whether or not it's spam or not spam. So classification is like very simple details about something specific. So it could be, you know, even a taco. Let's say a taco. A taco is a feature, and the ground beef, the amount of ground beef in the taco is also a feature. The amount of sauce and the type of sauce is also a feature. But the label is whether or not it's vegan or not vegan. Is it gluten-free or is it gluten? See, it's like true or false. It's kind of more like a binary thing. The next one is clustering. Clustering is where you group similar items into a cluster based on the features. So you're going to put all the big apples in one group, all the small apples in the other. You're going to put all the blue items over there, the brown items over there. Or you're going to put the big cigars over there and the smaller cigars over there. You know, the perfectos over there, the figurados over there. And then validation, evaluation, these are two different things that you use in your data set to train these different regressions, classifications, and clusterings. You have something called the confusion matrix. The confusion matrix is what it actually says. It's a confusing thing. This works with the classification thing, like a true or false kind of thing. And then there's two things. There's positive here, there's positive there, negative here, negative there. Top down is what the real value is. And then from left to right is the predicted value. So in this first box here, we can see that the actual value is true and the predicted value is true. This is called a true positive. Here we can see that under the real column and under the predicted column, it's a false, but it thinks that it's positive because it's under this row. This is called a false positive because here it says it's positive. This row is positive. Everything in this row is going to be positive. But it's actually on this row, top down, it's a negative. So it's not actually true. So that's a false positive. And in the bottom right hand corner, it's negative and it's negative. So this is a true negative. Here's an inference pipeline. So let's say we were just talking about all these Azure machine learning stuff. You build pipelines from it. An inference pipeline is one that you can save. You can send it to your friends for them to deploy. You can save it in your documentation. You could store it for future use. So you can use it as templates. and you can use them to deploy on different infrastructures like AKS clusters or container instances. The next idea we have is anomaly detection. Anomaly detection analyzes, it's like, you're in Chicago and that's where you live and you're always signing into your bank. And then one day someone signs into your bank account from like Brazil. Then anomaly detection is going to catch that and then lock out your account and be like, hey, someone has signed, just logged in from Brazil, so you're going to need like an MFA something to get back into your account. That's what anomaly detection is. Computer vision is how AI sees the world. So this is what you can use to do face recognition to unlock your phone. And then there's custom vision, where you can create your own vision analysis tools. So you can, let's say, upload 10 pictures of a carrot and then 10 pictures of an onion. And then you can tell your computer that the 10 carrots are carrots and the 10 onions are onions. And now you can upload another picture or show it a picture. And if there's a carrot or an onion in it, it's going to tell you. There's also image classification, where it's going to tell you what kind it is. So it's like, so if you get a image classification, if you give it a bunch of pictures of different onions, it could say like, this onion's big, this one's small, this piece of thing that you showed me is vegan, this one's not vegan. Then we got object detection, where it's kind of similar to custom vision. You could just show the same thing, tomatoes, pastas, or different onions, or whatever you want to put in it. It's pretty similar to custom vision, but the main difference is that object detection, you need at least 15 images for every tag. And when you upload a picture to test it, the test is going to show you what it's testing and the percentage of confidence it has that what it tested is right. Azure AI Face does facial detection, but it takes it to the next level of computer vision. So computer vision is just your go-to facial detection. But if you want to do some deep analysis to like then be able to detect someone if they have sunglasses on or not, or still be able to know it's you with your COVID mask on or not, or from different angles, then you would use Azure AI Face. OCR, optical character recognition. This is something where if you want to handwrite something on a piece of paper, you can use this to extract the text from it. Form recognizer, where you can use receipts from a restaurant or invoices or something. It can read it and then it can like compile it into an Excel spreadsheet. So it can show like the merchant's address and then give you the merchant's address. It'll tally up the subtotals and the taxes and like a Excel's output layout. The next one is natural language processing. So this is AI that understands you when you talk to it. So it's like voice assistants like Siri, Cortana, Alexa, analyzes and interprets text, automatically translates spoken and written languages, speech recognition, speech synthesis. So speech recognition and speech synthesis, the difference between these two is speech recognition is when you talk to a robot and it understands what you're saying. Speech synthesis is when a robot talks to you and you understand what it's saying. So speech recognition would be you saying, hey Alexa, turn off the lights. Speech synthesis would be the robot telling you, hey Adam, Shoppers Drug Mart is 1 kilometer away from you, and 200 meters, turn left. So under natural language processing, we got a few components. We got text analytics. Text analytics, it detects text only. No speech, no sounds, it's just text. It detects what language the text is in. And even if you got like 3 or 4 different languages in one piece of paper, it'll detect the predominant language, the one that you use the most. If the language is unknown, if you're using like Pokemon Unknowns or Daedric from The Elder Scrolls, it's going to say NAN for unknown language. It also does sentiment analysis, where 1 is highly positive, 0 is negative, and 1 is like a good score for restaurants. So if someone says like, oh, this was amazing, the food was the best, it'll analyze that and it will pick out words. So it'll see keywords like amazing, the best, and then it'll say, okay, this is good. Or if it's bad, it'll be like, this was horrible, the food tasted awful. Then it will take out the keywords of horrible and awful, and it'll give it a bad score, which is like 0.1. If it doesn't find anything like expressive or emotional like that, it's just going to probably give it a neutral score in the middle. Text analytics also extracts key phrases. So it's like when you do Control F and I'm looking for the word guy. Well, I got guy right here highlighted in green. That's what that is. Then it does entity recognition. So it recognizes when things are entities. So if I'm saying, so in this word, it recognizes that guys, that this is a guy. It knows that it knows what we're talking about here. It knows that is it recognizes dates, times, prices, ages, landmarks, and other similar things. This brings us to Azure AI Speech. So you ever been to a different language before and you're trying to use your translator app to talk to someone else, and then you realize that instead of just texting, typing it out what you're trying to say, there's actually a little microphone button on your translator app. You can hold that down while you talk, and as you're speaking, it translates it to a text, which it then translates to a different language. That's what Azure AI Speech does. Next is Azure AI Translator. So speech actually just accepts all. So Azure AI Speech doesn't do the translating. It just listens to you, it understands what you're saying, and it records what you're saying in text. The translator is what actually translates it from different languages. Remember, text analytics does not do translations. Only the translator does translations. Azure AI Speech does not do translations. Only the translator does translations. Got it? Good. The next one is language understanding. This is called LUIS. LUIS is Alexa or Google Home, Siri, or Cortana. This is what understands what you're saying. So when you're saying, turn on the lights, or make me a coffee, when LUIS hears this, it breaks it down into 3 different concepts. There's the utterances, where it listens to the whole thing that we say. So if I say, turn on the living room lights, it hears the full sentence. The entity is something it takes away from what I said, and that's lights. And the intent is the purpose or the action, and that's turn on. And its fallback, which brings us to reliability and safety principle, is that it maybe just prompts you again saying, sorry, I didn't understand you. We've got 3 more to go. Let's hang in here. We've got Conversational AI. Conversational AI is the chat bot on websites when you're trying to ask it, hey, when is your store open? What time do you guys close? Do you guys have any sales or promotions at the moment? Just kind of questions like that. So conversational AI, all it does is it inputs humans, everything that a human will type to it, it takes that, and then it brings it to something else called the cognitive services for language, this thing right here, and it looks at the knowledge base that this service has and has a big list of questions and answers. And whatever the human says, it's going to take that and compare it to all the questions that are listed in the cognitive services for languages service. And it's going to give you back whatever answer is tied to the questions that are the most similar with what the human asked. The only way you can interact with the cognitive services for language is with either a REST API, a software development kit, or a language studio. And the only ways to put in the knowledge base of questions and answers is using an existing FAQ document or a URL, importing them from a predefined chit-chat data source, or input the questions and answers manually. That's the only ways. You can't use machine learning or any of these other AI methods to put these questions and answers in here. So the second last thing we're going to talk about is the Azure Bot Service, which brings us to 2 different kind of bots. We have the Azure Bot Service, which can deliver our knowledge base to end users. It can create an interface via web, email, Teams, or more. And it's created by the Botwork Framework SDK or in the Language Studio for Cognitive Services for Language. So you could talk to a bot with text or speech. And the main difference between the conversational AI and the Azure Bot Service is if you want to talk back and forth with the bot, you're going to be using conversational AI. So you'll have a conversation with it. But if you're just talking to it through email or Teams, and it's just sending you messages, that's just a bot service. So that's the main point. If they ask you on the question on the exam, what's the bot service that's going to automatically send you emails to talk with, then that's the Azure Bot Service. If it's going to ask you, what bot can you have a conversation with to answer questions and ask more questions for, that's the conversational AI. The next kind of bot is a Power Virtual Agent. This bot is created with just guidance on the Power Platform of Microsoft, and there's no code interface. And you don't need to know any coding or anything about bots to set this up. I did not see anything about this on the AI 900 exam. You could read about it briefly, but it's not a big part of the exam. The next one is knowledge mining. This is the last one. So knowledge mining is what AI uses to quickly learn vast amounts of information. Imagine you go into a massive historical library with like 100,000 different books. Now imagine you're trying to look for every book that talks about lobster cap mushrooms. Well, that's a lot of books to look through. So imagine you had a robot that could instantly gather all the information, or not instantly, but quickly, in a very quick amount of time, gather all the information from every book in that library and give you back just the key topics and the key sources of what it found. That's what knowledge mining is. So now that you know exactly what to study, what to focus on, and what topics to learn about, if you just focus on what I just told you about today and ignore everything else, you should be able to pass the AI 900 within a couple weeks. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck.